It's a shame for you not to make good money and grow your portfolio when these business owners do it so easily.
The best way to do that is be plugged in with people like you that have built a network and bring a consortium of thought leaders and thinkers, because we all get so much more out of talking to other people. I mean, the ideas that you and I get just today in this conversation, we're bouncing things back and forth. We've had conversations before, and you ping off of other people who are thinking the same way creatively. And that's what you want to do. You want to be around those kind of people and be looking and seeking those opportunities and get perspective from other people who can give you some clarity or give you some ideas, and then act on those ideas, because that's the innovative part of what we get to do. And that's the fun part of being an entrepreneur. Really, it is.
I'm Ken Newhouse. Building a profitable business isn't only about generating leads and driving sales. It's about who we are and what we're made of. It's about finding the most effective methods to persuade, inspire, and ignite the imagination of others so you can succeed in business. If you're a member of the new breed of entrepreneur, I invite you to join the quest as we reveal the newest and most effective methods you can use to get clients now. If you're like me and my most successful clients, you've mapped out your entire life, your entire career in advance. You've been blessed with a good intellect and with a great work ethic. For you, failure has never been an option. No matter what, you would have a perfect family, a perfect career, a perfect lifestyle and financial future, a perfect life. Perhaps you've even told yourself, I've got this. The sky's the limit. For me, that all changed when I was hit head-on by a fully loaded dump truck when driving my Jeep Cherokee home from work. I was less than a half mile from the safety and comfort of my family when the accident occurred. The accident should have killed me, but by the grace of God, 18 surgeries and years of rehabilitation, I regained much of my health. That accident occurred due to no fault of my own, and it occurred suddenly and without warning. Now, chances are slim that your life's been turned upside down by a dump truck, but like many of my clients, COVID-19 has created challenges for you and your business you never imagined possible. It was 25 years ago when mean old Dan Kennedy taught me that having one of anything as it relates to business and finances was a recipe for disaster. I practiced chiropractic for over 16 years, but the injuries I sustained from my accident eventually forced me to switch careers. Having an additional revenue stream allowed me the time and freedom to choose the career path of my dreams, and that's what I'm doing now. Hi, I'm Ken Newhouse, host of the Get Clients Now podcast, and today is episode number 383. The guest I'll be speaking with is Dr. David Phelps, CEO and founder of Freedom Founders, and on today's episode, Dr. Phelps is going to reveal several methods he's developed and perfected over the last 15 years that allow you to improve the success and profitability of your current business while helping you generate secondary revenue streams that can help you achieve your financial goals and enjoy the lifestyle you've always wanted. This is not how to invest in the stock market. It has nothing to do with that. And in light of all that's happening with COVID-19 and the new COVID economy, this is definitely an episode you want to pay close attention to. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and welcome Dr. David Phelps onto the show. All right, Dave, it's good to have you on the show today. So on behalf of myself and members of the Get Clients Now Nation, I want to welcome you. How are you doing today?
Ken, I'm doing great. Great to be here. A pleasure.
So, David, one of the first things that I do with all of our guests on the show is that I ask them a little bit about their backstory. So if you could take a minute or two, give us your backstory, kind of bring us up to speed with what you're doing now, kind of where you came from and got started. That obviously is covered in detail in your book. But for the listener who may not know that much about you, or for the listener who may know who you are, but not really know what's going on in your business, bring us up to speed so we can get started off in the right direction.
Sure, Ken. So I'll keep this tight. Started out going down a professional career path into dentistry back in 79 and 80, and I graduated dental school in 83. While I was in dental school, I was also looking at how could I create eventually wealth and investments. And just to keep it really tight, I decided real estate was a good thing to look at. So in 1980, while I was in dental school, my first year in Baylor in Dallas, with my dad's help, bought a rental property. Well, going fast forward, graduated dental school, went into practice, associate, eventually my own practice. But at the same time, I'm continuing to buy real estate because I just see this as a means to an end to what I call today a plan B. Going along in life, things are going pretty darn well. My daughter, Jenna, age 2.5, diagnosed with high-risk leukemia. That throws everything up in the air. Family life, all the focus is on her. My marriage to her mom, unfortunately, didn't survive all that. There's a happy ending to the story. Jenna survived the leukemia. She had epileptic seizures after that. And at age 12, she's in end-stage liver failure. At that point in my life, thinking I need to really focus on what's important in my life, which was really more time with my daughter and not taking everything for granted. So I sold the practice, actually sold it twice. We can talk about that later. Sold the practice twice and focused on Jenna, who did survive the liver transplant. She's 28 years old today. She's doing very well. Out of the void, the vacuum that came after selling the practice, organically started Freedom Founders about 10 years ago. And it's an organization today, a community of professional practice owners, doctors, dentists, lawyers, veterinarians, chiropractors, who are wanting to create what I call today Plan B, wealth outside the practice, income streams that are sustainable, predictable, that allow them to live, a life with choices and options, and transition from active income to more passive income or whatever they want to do in life sooner than they think is possible.
So just a quick question. What if, as an example, I got a guy or a gal who, they got a 7-figure business, they're not in the medical profession like you and I were, but they still have interest in your coaching program. You're not going to say, hey, listen, you're not a professional. You're not a doctor or a dentist. You can't come in. So they're welcome as well. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. The focus is pretty much on health professionals because that's who I speak to. But you and I both would agree that diversity in any kind of community is really a good thing because business is business. And every business owner, doesn't matter what industry they're in, they all have the same issues. And we speak to that. So we don't do anything clinical in our community.
So David, what's something about you in the marketplace, maybe even within your own community, that your members or the marketplace in general really doesn't know about you, but you'd like them to know?
Well, on a personal basis, I'd say I'm very much an introvert. And if I'm in a setting where I don't know the people, I'm going into a new room or new place, I'm going to be the quiet, reserved one in the back of the room. I watch, I observe. Now, put me in front of my tribe, which is people that are entrepreneurs or people that love marketing like you or people like real estate or that kind of thing, I come out of my shell. So I kind of have, two faces to David. There's the normal introverted side, but put me in my space with my people and, I kind of explode and get excited. So people that know me well think I'm more extrovert, but in social settings overall, I'm an introvert.
It's interesting that you say that you're an introvert because that was the one question, the one thing about working with dentists, because for a long time as a retired chiropractor, I only worked with chiropractors. Then I met the beautiful and talented Lisa who worked for Septodont. You and I know who that is. One of the largest pharmaceutical sundry dealers, suppliers, manufacturers in the world. But anyway, I asked Dr. Ferran when he was on the show, I'm like, what is it about dentists that I'm just not getting it? I can't instill this in them. He said, listen, most dentists are introverts and, they're not really into the marketing and things like that. 10, 20% of them are really high energy, very entrepreneurial minded, but about 80% of them are not. And I didn't understand that, but it's funny that you say that because to me, I would label you anything other than being an introvert. You're very gregarious. At least you have been with me, very outgoing, very personable. Obviously, you've got a stellar reputation. And so I just find that ironic that you say that because some of the dentists that I meet, it's like, no pun intended, it's like pulling teeth to get them on board with some of, and not trying to be funny at all. It's literally like, go figure I'm interviewing a dentist today on the show, but it's like pulling teeth to get some of these guys and gals to really jump on board with some really cool, proven marketing stuff. But for the most part, it's been a fun ride. But let's talk about your book, From High Income to High Net Worth. It's an awesome book. It's very detailed. It's literally, as far as I'm concerned, it's a plan, really. It's not just a book you read for entertainment. This is like a plan. My question is, why'd you write it?
Well, I wrote it because I realized that what I had kind of figured out through experience and connection with other people outside of dentistry, and I'm talking about in the real estate and entrepreneurial space, that there's so much more about life and creating income and building wealth than just the technical aspect of what a lot of us went to school to learn how to do. And that's where we all start. I didn't know any of that. I wasn't exposed to anything outside of get an education, go as high up as you can and get into some kind of a staid, very reliable, stable career profession, because that's where stability and freedom comes from. And I realized that notwithstanding the fact that you can make a good income, there's not really freedom in that. And so finding people that were outside the dental space in more entrepreneurs and real estate, I found a pathway, a mentorship plan that I believed in. And so through my own story, my experience, and the fact that I was able to financially leave practice because of my daughter, that was my big why. No other reason than that, but I was able to leave that because I did have this outside wealth and income stream. I wasn't magnanimously wealthy at the time, Ken, when I did that some 15 years ago, but I had enough. And most people in our profession, they work hard, they provide a good income for their families and their lifestyle, but they never see how they can exit. There's always the fear factor. Do I have enough? and most feel like they don't, so they keep working and keep putting off their dreams, their vision, their choices or options, the things they really want to do. They put it off indefinitely to that mystical someday. So I felt like I need to write a book about what I've learned, my story, and put it in a framework that would resonate or make sense to the people I'm writing it for, which again are small business entrepreneurs or healthcare industry professionals that could relate to what I was talking about, because I am one of them.
Just a quick note, I'm not a dentist, retired chiropractor, but if you have any kind of a successful business, and David mentioned the words exit strategy, the phrase exit strategy, if that's somewhere down the road for you, not too far in the distant future, this might be the perfect book for you to pick up. And by the way, as with every guest I have on the show, you can invest in Dr. Phelps' book, knowing that this book is going to actually deliver immense value for you. Invest in it, read it, deploy what you've read. You will see the brilliance in the book. The strategies are absolutely brilliant. If you try it and it doesn't work for you, email me at customerservice@kennewhouse.com and I will reimburse you 100% for the book. Just very quickly, Dr. David, where can we get the book?
Yeah, a book is available, very accessible up on Amazon. That's a quick look at the cover. But yeah, Amazon is the quick, easy place to pick it up.
Having said that, you mentioned one of the chapters in the book that caught my attention right away because I've been talking about it lately quite often, and because of mean old Dan talking, all of his books are about the quote unquote new economy. One of your chapters is surviving and thriving in the new economy. And I wanted to ask you a question with a little bit of a twist about the new economy, because as far as I can tell, we're now in a new economy, and that's the COVID economy. And so my question to you is, what would you say as it relates to building a high net worth, developing and working on that exit strategy? What do you see right now in the new COVID economy as the biggest threat to my listeners' ability to do this successfully and keep on track with their plan? And if they haven't developed a plan yet, like that would prevent them from getting started with maybe your help on their plan?
So for probably 95% of the hardworking, diligent, very clinically adept, high integrity, value oriented, just doing great work out there. I'm talking about our professionals we're talking to today. Any business owner that's in that realm who is doing the right thing the way they were trained to do it. The pathway to real wealth, which is wealth, I believe, is really having assets to provide income that you don't have to work for. So real wealth and having the choices and freedom. It's going to be harder on a traditional pathway to get there, whatever that number is. It's going to be a much steeper pathway up to get there, and then to preserve it. It's going to be harder. And I can say that just because the writing's on the wall with the economy, the amount of debt and deficit spending this country has. The government has an insatiable appetite for more money because they spend more than they get, and they're gonna unfortunately come after more and more high income, high net worth people. So there's already a target on people's backs today. We're considered the evil capitalists. If you have a business, if you put your risk on the line, you put all these years into your education and building a business, and unfortunately, there's about half the population believes that they are victims and we are the ones that are all the money, and it's going to be tougher. You can do it, but for the most people, that staid path, traditional path, without some alteration, without some iteration, is not going to work.
Yeah, could you imagine, David, if minimum wage, and obviously, the people you're paying, the people I'm paying, we pay more than $15 an hour, but can you imagine just for the dental industry and all these professional industries, and even people who employ people in their marketing companies and things like that, $15 an hour. Can you imagine what that's going to do to those businesses? They're going to start cutting jobs.
Have to.
And then eventually, like you said, there's like this bloodlust that certain political parties, actually I think both, have for spending money, one more than the other, for sure. I am a staunch conservative. I'm not sure where you stand. I say that because my audience seems to like that, and I repel those who aren't staunch conservatives because, quite honestly, I totally disagree with everything that the liberal platform stands for. But let me ask you this question. So, David, as I'm reading through your book, kind of see an overarching theme, but I wanted you to articulate it for the listener. What would you say is the biggest single lesson if we had to force you to narrow it down to one lesson? And certainly, you got to read the book to really understand all this, but what's the one primary lesson, the overarching, big, important lesson that you want readers to get from reading your book?
Well, I bet you already know what it is, Ken, just because we come from the same background philosophy. But the worst number in business, or the worst number in revenue or cash flow streams or income, the worst number is the number one. And that's what we all have been told to do. Again, to put everything on our back to become the best we can be at whatever we're going to do with job, career, profession. And that's absolutely truthful. But if that's where you put everything, all the eggs in that one basket, you are very vulnerable in life. Look, COVID just showed us that in a big way. What outside external forces that we have no control over can hit us like a black swan. And all of a sudden, that revenue stream that we were so dependent upon that was looking so good can be thwarted. It can be decimated, put on hold, pause, whatever it is. You've got to have multiple streams of income or revenue. That's really the key construct of this. And I just use real estate as a vehicle. You could do it different other ways as well. No question about it.
Okay, so let's talk about other vehicles, because I've learned kind of the hard way when I was much younger, thanks to Einstein and No Bagel Company. They were the precursor to like Enron and the other people who were like, they cooked the books.
Yep.
I took a bath at age 27 to the tune of about $100,000 from Einstein and No Bagels. And actually the mistake I made really was listening to a patient who was a stockbroker, young and stupid with tons of money, money like everywhere.
Right.
But you live and you learn. So what about the stock market as a way to build your portfolio over time and, work on your exit strategy? Juxtapose that with real estate investing. And I know the type of real estate investing that you're big on, if I'm correct, single family dwellings, my personal favorite. I mean, I know some people like apartment complexes and, multi-family units, things like that, but juxtapose those two, talk about the pros and the cons of both, because, look at what's happened to the stock market just over the last 6 months. Look at how much, I hear people saying, I've lost so much money. Well, if you don't sell, you haven't lost it, but still, I get the point. But, has the real estate market been really eviscerated like the stock market has because of COVID?
Well, the thing about real estate, which I call Main Street investing versus Wall Street, which is what you're alluding to, is that Wall Street is much more volatile. People talk about real estate, in general, they say, well, real estate's illiquid. Well, that's not even true by itself. Some real estate is, no question about it. But because of the illiquidity of and the inefficiency of the real estate market, Main Street, that means it doesn't have the high volatility. Now, yes, there are certain asset classes, there are certain geographic areas of the country that have more volatility. COVID has definitely disrupted and affected some sectors of real estate, being the outlier pandemic that it is, just to be specific, like office and some retail. But overall, real estate is still very strong. Now, there's outside influences that are causing some of that, as it's caused the stock market to come back up. That's the Federal Reserve has pumped unprecedented amounts of money into the country. But here's why I like real estate. It's a tangible, hard asset. And if you stay focused on needs-based investing, so a roof over someone's head, that could be a single-family house. Look, yeah, that could be multifamily. That could be a mobile home, a solid mobile home, either on 2 acres or in a mobile home park community. You focus on affordable sectors of the marketplace. Recession, pandemic, whatever, people don't run for the hills and jump into tents or into caves. It doesn't happen. There's always a need. So can there be a little bit of fluctuation? Could there be some change in your actual, tenant mix? Yes. In 2008, some tenants had to move down. They moved down from a certain segment of living to maybe a smaller home or a smaller apartment. But guess what? There's people right above them ready to come right in. So that part never ends. So staying in a sector that is understandable and that makes sense. There's areas of real estate that you can speculate in, which I don't do. And so people can get hurt in real estate. The stock market, look, it's so emotionally tied. We saw that. We saw, as you said, in the last 6 months, we saw the big drop, and now it's come back up again, but waiting for the next shoe to drop there. And the other thing I'll add to that conversation, Ken, is that I talk about degrees of separation from your money, from your investment. So a no separation would be you own your own business. You're active, you own your own business, your practice, right? Or you, in an investment side, you might go buy a rental house and you might manage the contractors and you might manage the tenant. There's no separation. You are right there. You're actively involved. Now, that can be good if that's your focus, but I see too many people get mixed up and go, I want to be in my business and I want to be, in real estate and do, flip this house or that kind of thing. Bad way to go. You need to focus on one or the other, right? So most of our listeners today, the degrees of separation would be Wall Street. There's multiple degrees of separation. When you're investing on Wall Street, stocks, bonds, annuities, whatever it might be, you don't get to sit inside the boardrooms and hear the culture and see what's going on. You're reading reports. You're talking to a financial advisor who, again, is separated from what's actually going on. In real estate, you can be next to those people. And we talk about investing through other people, finding the right people. We get to sit, eat lunch, go spend time with them at their business. That's part of the due diligence. So you really have like 1 degree of separation in real estate versus Wall Street is several degrees. And it just depends on what people want. I think Wall Street And like 401ks, which is kind of the default way that most people in businesses go, and their CPAs recommend that when they're paying too much tax, you need to open a 401k or a cash balance plan or defined benefit plan. See, I think that's a bad model. Number one, it's like abdication of your financial future. You're putting that money into those tax-deferred environments in like a lockbox, because you can't access that money until you're 59 and a half without a penalty. So now it's totally off. You couldn't take that and put it into an opportunity on Main Street or your own business without paying a penalty. So you lost that. Plus, you're not directing it. Someone else is doing it for you. So you got that degrees of separation. You just got to, people have to decide, do you want to be in your control of your financial future? It takes some more work. It takes some diligence. It takes being a part of a tribe or a group that's doing the same thing to do it. If you don't have time to do it, then putting money in a 401k does have a disciplinary effect to it. So sometimes young people that are just getting started, do they need to be doing a practice and learning to do what we do in real estate? Probably not. Probably you got to have some separation. There's timing to that. But as soon as possible, people need to take control of their financial future. I'm a big believer of.
David, I'm jealous of the fact, and I lament the fact that I did not have, even though it was part of, it wasn't Dan Kennedy, it was Ron LeGrand. Ron.
Sure.
Yes. So yeah, I went on all the little trips and walked through houses with him and his minions and everything else. Right. And I got started flipping houses 22 years ago. But you're right. I wish I would have had a group of people, like-minded people that were not so much like in his group, but in your group, that would have been much more supportive of me. But, you talk about degrees of separation. I think that was, for me, one of my problems as well, is because I really got wrapped up in wanting to manage and oversee the process. I guess it's that, type A control freak personality in me. And now I've kind of juxtaposed all that. Now I don't even have employees. I outsource everything, because I don't want to babysit adults anymore.
Right.
I can see the beauty in having just one person or organization or entity managing all of my properties for me. And I think, which is the way it is now, it's a tremendous difference. So the things that you're telling the listener right now, you're knocking it out of the park, because a lot of people make the mistakes that I made when they start investing in real estate, is they try to manage that themselves and then go back to their business or their practice. And you can't be taking calls in the middle of the day.
No.
From your contractor. Your plan really kind of navigates through all that and gives people a plan to avoid all of those pitfalls and traps that, and quite honestly, some very educated, really smart people fall into.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We tend to be the self-reliant, rugged individualists. That's how we were built. That's how we grew up. That's what people told us. If it's to be, it's up to you. You got to get the grades. You got to get the license degree. So we're not used to collaborating. We want to control. We love to have control. But the more you try to control, the less you get done in life, and it will hang you up. Real estate, because it is a cash flow generator, besides the fact that you can get appreciation, inflation hedge, tax benefits, you can leverage into it. There's lots of benefits, but it's operational. To make that revenue come out of a certain real estate, whatever asset class you want to talk about, it takes some operational aspect. And that's where people get hung up. They think, well, to make this work, then I got to go do it. You have to think in terms in your life, and this goes for anything, Ken. Even in your business, where you may be, the solopreneur, you may be the operator, but you've got other support staff. The more we think in terms of what in my current focus point, the time I put in every day, whether it's in my business or it could be investments or whatever it might be, what are the things that only I can do, absolutely only I can do, and what can other people do?
Highest and best use of your time.
You talked about outsourcing. When you think about getting something done, it's better to think about who could do it rather than the how. We go to the how because we're fixers. We want to go to the how. So we dig into something new and we get into it, and it takes our time and focus away. And again, real estate, it's operational. So if you're going to do it and be in the how part of it, as an active investor, you got to dedicate your focus there. You've got to have a business. Better to find someone who already has that business, who are the house flippers. They have their own contractors. They've got systems and a game plan, and they're vetting people, and they can be out there, and they're not taking calls in between patients. Those are the people you want to, and I use the term loosely, partner. I'm not saying a formal partnership, but loosely partner, joint venture with. And there's structures you can do in that regard that keeps your interests separate. So again, you're not in the mix of, and you can be very passive, but have the cash flow and the equity plays very much with everybody on the same page. Everybody's working towards the same goal. That's what you want in life. When you partner or joint venture with people, you want everybody to have alignment that's similar with you taking the part you want to take which in this case is probably more passive, and they take the part they want to take, which is the active part of the operational piece. Make sense?
It does. Can you imagine if you're a dentist and you're doing a core buildup, getting ready for a crown, or if you're a chiropractor and you're in the middle of an exam, or if you are a consultant or a coach and you're with a really hot prospect and you get a call and your assistant comes in, or your phone keeps vibrating and it's the contractor. The plumber didn't show up and now there's water leaking everywhere. You're getting these texts or whatever else. I mean, you don't want to deal with that. You want to be able to focus on, like Dan used to say, high and best use of your time. What do you produce the most money doing that you really enjoy doing? Outsource everything else, or, delegate, give it to somebody else who can do it better than you, and for pennies on the dollar. So I think that's brilliant. So just a few minutes ago, David, I asked you a question about the biggest threat to the financial future, or the ability to, make that the exit strategy for my listener. But what do you see right now in the new COVID economy as the biggest single opportunity for my listener as it relates to working on that plan and developing a sound exit strategy that, so they can retire with tons of cash and live the life they've always wanted to?
Ken, in times of economic volatility or disruption, which we have now and which we have usually about every 6 to 8 years, there's some kind of a market cycle, reset, recession, whatever it's going to be. Most people fall into the victim side, right? I mean, because they have one model, the model works in an upcycle, and then they get thrown a curveball and they don't have any plan B in any respect. And that can be in their active business or in their investments like we do in real estate. I think there's opportunities in both, but it's going to be for a small percentage and probably more so for the listeners here, because they come here to learn great attributes of marketing and differentiation of their businesses. So that's what you do, but I want to just, give a plug to the disruption provides opportunities in both. And I know you talk about that with many of your podcasts, so I won't go there because that's what you focus on, and you know that very well. On the real estate side, it's really the same thing. Disruption creates new opportunities. There's a retail space in the economy, or you can say even in real estate, which includes real estate brokers, licensees, the institutional banking system, and they have a box. They have a box where a lot of business goes through that box. I mean, that's where the majority of real estate financing and acquisition and management goes through that box. But that box is very rigid. And outside that box, particularly in times of volatility, a lot of the opportunities that an entrepreneur or someone who is tied to an entrepreneur with capital they want to invest don't fit inside that box. That's what I call filling the void that the institutional retail side of any space can't handle. There's plenty of space there for people who can access these and solve problems that the retail marketplace, the government can never fill as voids. There's always places to access that and solve problems in that particular environment, your business environment, real estate environment, whatever you want to be in. Solve that problem by putting together solutions and doing in creative ways that the retail institutional places will never do, or the people who are stuck in one model and can never get their head out of the sand to look for a different way. And again, the best way to do that is be plugged in with people like you that have built a network and bring a consortium of thought leaders and thinkers, because we all get so much more out of talking to other people. I mean, the ideas that you and I get just today, having this conversation, we're bouncing things back and forth. We've had conversations before, and you ping off of other people who are thinking the same way creatively. And that's what you want to do. You want to be around those kind of people and be looking and seeking those opportunities and get perspective from other people who can give you some clarity or give you some ideas, and then act on those ideas, because that's the innovative part of what we get to do. And that's the fun part of being an entrepreneur. Really, it is.
For many years, I bought and sold property with cash. I made the deals myself, didn't use a real estate agent, none of those things. And then somebody convinced me that I needed a residential and commercial real estate license. So I did that. It was the worst decision I've ever made as far as trying to acquire properties for the purposes of investment, because of all of the regulation and all the hoops and everything else and all the rules that I subjected myself to. I literally hamstrung myself. I tied my hands behind my back. It prohibited me from doing a lot of it took away all my flexibility and all of my latitude and everything else. So you brought out a brilliant, brilliant point. So David, your podcast, The Dentist Freedom Blueprint, is literally one of the most listened to podcasts for dentists, not only on iTunes, but on Dentaltown. And both you and I are contributors for Dentaltown. We have been for you maybe longer than me. I don't know, since 2010, I've been on there. But I always see your face. Every time I go in there and just look around, there's David Phelps, there's David Phelps, there's David Phelps. I mean, the people are talking about you constantly. Your shows are being uploaded constantly, your articles, all these things. You're being featured constantly. I'm a little jealous, I'll admit. But having said that, what does it take to build, a really successful podcast like your podcast? What's involved with that?
Well, I think you have to have a message that is unique because, anything we do, we've got to be unique. You don't want to just be another one of those, whatever those is. And there's plenty of that out in the space, whether it's podcasts or otherwise. So, you need to come with some unique message to a specific market that resonates. And, the way to know that is, you've got to test your message somewhere. You've got, and that's how Freedom Founders started. I just kind of tested an idea and see how it would roll. I think you also have to have a lot of passion for what you do. You need to have a passion for the people that you see, that you don't see in reality, but you can picture the people you're talking to. That you've got to have that avatar. Who am I reaching? Who am I talking to? In this case, Dental Town and my podcast, it's focused on dentists. It can be other people, as we talked about earlier today, but that's who I see. I see my colleagues. I see people I went to school with, and I'm thinking, I want to help them. So you want to be able to help people. And so you've got to come with passion, and then you've got to be someone who is creative and visionary. And whether you do monologue podcasts or I do like you do, I like to bring other thought leaders into the arena and have conversations with them and try to draw out the best of those people that fits my audience. So you've got to think about your audience first. Who are you trying to help? What's the message that you have that's unique that you want to deliver to them? And if you focus on that, I think the rest doesn't necessarily take care of itself because, as you said, you've got to promote, you've got to put yourself out there, but you got to have the reason why. Why are you doing it, right? Why are you doing it? It's got to be bigger than the money. It's got to be bigger than building a business. It's got to be a real passion inside you that you want to transform some people's lives with your message. That's the ultimate, I think.
Where do you see yourself, no matter who wins the presidential election? And just, the thought of Joe Biden winning the election really for me is horrific. It's nightmarish, but yep. I trust in the Lord.
Yep.
He's the one who provides for me and makes my way. And, all these things eventually will happen. But where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Well, I continue to want to, elevate myself a little bit more as, chairman of what I do. I am the visionary of Freedom Founders. We have a lot of great people on the team, but I like to empower other people to step in. I don't necessarily want to be always the face of everything, even though right now, in some ways it is. I want the message to be sustainable. And to your point, I am very conservative. I mean, I'm right in line with you. And in a smaller group, I will definitely, people will know very much where I stand politically. In a larger audience, I try to be, careful, pick and choose, positioning and words, and I won't come out and bash, a candidate, that kind of thing. On a larger scale, I talk more about direction and values. So I want to be a leader. I want to be relevant to as large an audience as I can. I don't need to grow Freedom Founders itself bigger. I believe in the ripple effect. If you're helping a certain group of people at a high level, then they're going to help other people, the generations to come. I think going back to the president's the election coming up, Ken, this one is a big one, and we don't have control over that. And I'm not scared. I'm not afraid of what happens one way or the other. I do definitely have a desire for an outcome. I have to have self-assurance that again, faith in God and faith in the people, that enough grassroots people that we can survive it, and we'll figure out ways to deal with what comes. And I only get that assurance from being networked with other people like mine. That's my best insurance policy is people. It's not money. It's not assets. Those are secondary. They're important, but it's people that you're connected with. And you and I, we go back many, many years to some of the tribes and communities we've been a part of. And the same thing. You've been through a horrific, life-changing event. And I know that you, besides your faith, you had to have other people that inspired you to pick it back up and make a major change, a major shift in what your direction was. That may happen to some people, may happen to this country, but we can sustain the values that are important to us in spite of a government or compliance or regulations that they want to try to stifle us with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I try not to bash people directly because I know some of the people who listen to my show just don't like, as an example, specifically President Trump. I like the results that he's gotten for the country.
Yeah.
It's not like I want, I don't hate him. I don't hate Joe Biden. But it's not like, I don't see President Trump as somebody I could be buddy with.
Right.
But at the same time, because him and I have nothing in common. Right. I'm not a billionaire. But having said that, I try to be outspoken because I want to be polarizing because of the fact I learned a long time ago, I don't want to work with people who don't see things maybe not exactly the same way, but people like our environment today is so, again, polarized that I couldn't imagine working with someone who is a staunch liberal.
Right.
Like if I'm trying to help them in their business, their viewpoint on everything would be like oil and water with mine.
Very much.
And therefore I wouldn't enjoy that. So for me, I don't care. I do care about the money. I want to get paid, but at the same time, I want peace of mind. I'm 55 years old. I want to love what I'm doing. I don't want to have to feel like, somebody's sticking bamboo rods under my fingernails every time I have to go work with Mary. And I've worked with Mary's before, but Mary's my avatar for the person who is the nightmare client to work with.
Yeah, very important to have that avatar. You're so correct. Life is fun if you get to work with the people that you enjoy working with, whether that's your staff, your employees, your clients, your patients. I think if you're intentional about building that, then whatever quote work you do, much of that is not work. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people have today is they went down a path that was supposed to give them these promises, but a lot of the missing ingredients, the secret sauce was never taught to them. So they just get on this machine that is kind of dictated by the industry or society, and it's not fun. And people they talk about, well, when can you retire? When do you want to retire? It's like, I even hate that word, but I get it for a lot of people that are stuck on that hamster wheel that, some different type of life. Retirement is like the word of the day for them. Like, when can I quote retire? And it's like, that's sad to me. It's sad that so many people have to live that way.
Yeah, I love working, and quite honestly, I never thought I would love anything as much as being a chiropractor because I honestly loved it. Made tons of money on my practices the last 9 years, thanks to Mean Old Dan, were 100% cash. Everybody said it wouldn't work. It worked wonderfully, but I love being a podcaster even more, and I love teaching people how to start their own podcast, which is something I want to talk to you about once we're done. Just briefly, just wet your ears a little bit and get your thoughts on it. But what's the one question today, David, that I should have asked you, but I didn't ask? Obviously, before you answer, your book is really like a manual. It's not a one-time read. This is a tremendous resource. I think you've underpriced it, but certainly that's your decision to make. It is worth multiples, exponential multiples of what you're asking for the book. But, books have a perceived price that people should pay. It's a fabulous book. But what's the one question today? Obviously, we can't cover the entire, the show. I would have to do an 8-hour interview with you for weeks on end to cover everything, like a month, everything in the book. But what's the one question today that would really benefit our listener that I should have asked, but I didn't ask?
Yeah, that's great, Ken. So I think the question that you might ask me would be, David, what should be the question that our audience right now should be thinking, just in terms of our general conversation today? Again, whether they want to build wealth through real estate or whatever they want to do, or their practice optimization, what would that question be that would give them more clarity? And I think that question would be, where do you, our audience, where do you want to be in terms of your lifestyle, the kind of work you do, and set a point in the future? Is that, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Because it's really Stephen Covey's, great book, Seven Habits, where he talks about, begin with the end in mind. And see, too many people don't do that. They go the other way. They work hard. They create a lifestyle. They create an income that certainly provides a level of security as long as they're working, as long as they're chained down and show up every day that they're scheduled. But that's really not what they want. So what do you really want? Now, if you get together with your spouse, your significant other, that's really important to do it together. So you got to say, what do we want? How do we want this to look? Now, certainly finances have to play a part into that. So that's where what we do in Freedom Founders, we plug in what people want and look at what that takes to get there. So they're at point A today. They want to be at point B in 3 years, 5 years. Now we just take point B, reverse engineer to back to where they are today and say, okay, then here are the vectors. Here are the inflection points. You have assets, you have skill sets right here on the table. What needs to be optimized in what order, or some things simultaneously to get from here to there that you're not doing right now because you're just in this kind of this trance of just doing. It's like treading water. Well, treading water will keep you afloat, but it's not going to get you to the side where you can get out, right, and go to the next move. You've got to get beyond treading water. So that's really what we do, is we start with the end in mind for every client, and we just reverse engineer back to what they have today and then build the game plan. Part of it includes the business, the practice, until it's ready to be sold. I don't get in the weeds of that, but we certainly help them point in the direction of people and help them. And then we really take the plan B wealth building and optimize that for them if it's what they're looking to do.
You are an absolute mind reader, because that is the exact question, almost verbatim, that I was going to ask you but I didn't. So it's ironic how that worked out. But anyway, David, more about Freedom Founders.
It's a pretty intimate group, and it's I built it that way on purpose. I always kept the goal that I didn't want to create something big, quantity. I really wanted quality, and so I'm still very much a hands-on guy, and that's somewhat to the detriment of my freedom. So I have to watch that. I admit to the areas that I have trouble too, because I love what I do. I love the clients. So it's a relatively small group. We have about 60-ish some members, and really it's people that I call them CEO business owners. Doesn't mean they've sold their business or their practice. They may be looking to do so in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We have owners that are in their late 30s, all the way up to in their early 60s. So we've got kind of that span. Typically, they have a business or businesses that are never perfect, because no business is ever perfect. But their focus doesn't have to be so much on their business. Their business is running pretty well. Not that they won't optimize more, but they've got also have some discretionary capital, equity, investments, whether it's in 401ks or taxable accounts, equity in properties or other debt equity, I call it, of usually $1 million or more that they could, over a period of time, at the right time, deploy it. That's where we really get them the ROI on that aspect of what we do. Other than that, and they're conservative type people like we talked about. That's really the group we have that I focus on. I love to do what we're doing today. I mean, I love to give inspiration and give some tidbits of advice or resources, books and things that people can also look at that aren't ready for that level, because there's a pathway to get there. You don't just one day wake up and go, I'm ready to go do this. We all have to work our way up that way, and there's got to be stepping stones to do that. So I try to be a part of that aspect too. And by you allowing me to be on this podcast today, I think I'm getting a chance to do that. So I thank you for that.
What is, just quickly, what's the URL to your website?
It's freedomfounders.com.
Freedomfounders.com. And just let me add this. I will say that David does delegate most things, and he does prioritize, and he's really focused on highest and best use of his time. And I'll give you an example in just a second. But when it comes to working with his clients, these are more like intimate friends than simply numbers that he's crunching or revenue, things like that. These are actual people that he cares about, that he's, very close friends with most, if not all of his members, at least friends on a casual basis, some of them very, very intimately. And it's like your best friend who's also, one step ahead of you, who's walked down a path that you want to go down, and he's going to show you where all the pitfalls are and the shortcuts and things like that to be able to help you achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve. Anything else you want to add before we run?
Listen, it's great having a conversation with you, Ken. I love what you do and your passion, your inspiration. You do so many great works, and I just appreciate the time to have the conversation with you today. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun. Before I wrap up, I want to actually acknowledge the fact that many of us have been together for almost 4 years now in this ongoing conversation about how we can more effectively market our businesses and get clients now. It has been an honor for me to be part of your continued growth as a business owner, a marketer, and business growth strategist, and to be able to influence the development of friends of the show, as well as the success and profitability of their businesses. If you're one who's listening to the show for the very first time today, I want to extend a personal and warm welcome. Perhaps you've been listening to all 383 episodes, as many of you have, or like others, you've joined us along the way. I'd be remiss if I failed to mention how amazing it is to me that so many of you, in addition to using the show for yourself, have been gracious enough to pass it along to colleagues, friends, and family members, and have allowed me the privilege to come into your lives, come into your work, and in many cases, to be an influence on your teams and in your organization. So thank you again. It's been a tremendous privilege and joy to be able to bring you this show every single week for the last, going on 4 years now. And having said that, I will continue to do it as long as you allow me the privilege to be of influence in your work and in your constant pursuit to become a high-level business strategist, marketer, and master communicator, making the world a better place as we're all working to do. As we approach the holiday season, I want to let you know that I have a ton of amazing episodes for you that have already been recorded and many, many more that are scheduled. And I can't wait to continue the journey for another 4 years and yet another 383 episodes. Now, before wrapping up, I want to quickly remind you that we're in the process of creating a free membership for you where you're going to be able to access the entire library of conversations searchable by topic since 2017. When you become a member at kennewhouse.com, membership will be free. But when you become a member, you'll have instant access to my own personal library, the book notes, the highlights that I've captured from Dr. Phelps' book, From High Income to High Net Worth, and you'll also have access to the other books that I featured on the show over the last several years, plus access to a weekly strategy guide that'll come into your inbox every Wednesday. The guide will feature all the links we mentioned on every show that links to books, resources, also other podcast episodes, as well as the most effective strategy we covered on that week's episode. Additionally, the guide's going to contain other articles online that I found that I know will be very, very helpful for you as well. So be sure to listen for the announcement when we launch the new free membership portal that we're creating for you on kennewhouse.com. And in addition to all that I've mentioned, remember, the first 100 subscribers will get a free digital copy of the updated version of my book, Profitable Again, as well as a copy of my newest book, Profitable Podcast Blueprint. Speaking of impressive people with amazing accomplishments, Steve Olsher is my guest next week. Steve Olsher is known as the world's foremost reinvention expert, famous for helping individuals and corporations become exceptionally clear on their what, that is, the one thing they were created to do, and his practical, no-holds-barred approach to life and business propels his clients towards achieving massive profitability while also cultivating a life of purpose, conviction, and contribution. A 30-plus year as an entrepreneur, Steve is the founder and editor-in-chief of Podcast Magazine, online pioneer who launched on CompuServe's Electronic Mall in 1993, New York Times best-selling author of What is Your What?, Discover the One Amazing Thing You Were Born to Do, creator of the New Media Summit, host of the #1 rated podcasts, Reinvention Radio and Beyond 8 Figures, international keynote speaker, yes, the list goes on, just a few more, in-demand media guest who's appeared on CNN, The Huffington Post, the cover of Founder magazine, and countless other media outlets. It's an amazing interview. You are absolutely going to love it. But join me for a conversation next week with Steve Olsher. Have a great week. I'll see you guys on Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Our objective with this podcast is to help you and your business stand out in the marketplace by crystallizing your messaging, marketing, and communications. On behalf of the whole Ken Newhouse team, thanks for listening.